Welcome. Today we're diving into the world of gig work and the various types of contracts that shape this flexible workforce. Gig workers, from delivery drivers to freelance designers, often operate under different agreements than traditional employees. Understanding these contracts is crucial for both workers and businesses, as it sets expectations, rights, and responsibilities. In this video, we'll break down the main types of contracts gig workers encounter, highlight their key features, and discuss what each means for your work life. Let's start by exploring the basics of gig work and why contracts matter. Gig worker is someone who takes on short-term flexible jobs, often through digital platforms or apps. Unlike traditional employees, gig workers are usually hired for specific tasks or projects, not for ongoing employment. This means they have more control over when and how they work, but also face unique challenges, such as less job security and fewer benefits. Understanding the nature of gig work helps clarify why contracts are so important in this space. Next, let's look at why contracts are essential for gig workers and the companies that hire them. Contracts are the foundation of any gig work arrangement. They outline the terms of the job, payment details, deadlines, and expectations for both the worker and the client. Without a clear contract, misunderstandings can arise, leading to disputes or unpaid work. For gig workers, contracts provide a sense of security and clarity, ensuring everyone is on the same page. For businesses, contracts help manage risk and set clear guidelines. Now, let's explore the most common types of contracts gig workers might encounter. Most common contract for gig workers is the independent contractor agreement. This contract defines the worker as self-employed, not an employee. It typically covers the scope of work, payment terms, deadlines, and intellectual property rights. Independent contractors are responsible for their own taxes and benefits, and they have the freedom to take on multiple clients. However, they don't receive employee protections like health insurance or paid leave. Let's look at what's usually included in these agreements. Dependent contractor agreements usually specify the services to be provided, the timeline for completion, payment schedules, and any confidentiality clauses. They may also address ownership of work produced, such as whether the client or the worker retains rights to the final product. These details protect both parties and ensure a clear understanding of the working relationship. Next, we'll discuss another common contract, the fixed-term contract. Fixed-term contract is used when a gig worker is hired for a specific period or project. This contract outlines the start and end dates, the scope of work, and payment details. Fixed-term contracts provide more structure than open-ended agreements, making them ideal for projects with clear deadlines. While still not offering full employee benefits, these contracts may include some protections, such as notice periods for ending the agreement. Let's see what makes fixed-term contracts unique. Fixed-term contracts clearly define the duration of the work and often include milestones or deliverables. They may specify what happens if the project ends early or if additional work is required. These contracts are common in industries like media, construction, or tech, where projects have a set timeline. For gig workers, fixed-term contracts offer predictability, but it's important to read the terms carefully to avoid surprises. Next, let's look at zero-hour contract. Zero-hour contracts are agreements where the employer isn't required to provide a minimum number of hours, and the worker isn't obligated to accept any work offered. This arrangement offers maximum flexibility but little job security. Gig workers on zero-hour contracts can choose when to work, but their income can be unpredictable. These contracts are common in sectors like hospitality or retail, where demand fluctuates. Let's break down the pros and cons of zero-hour contracts. Zero-hour contracts provide flexibility for both workers and employers. Workers can accept or decline shifts based on their availability, making it easier to balance other commitments. However, the lack of guaranteed hours means income can be unstable, and there are usually no benefits like sick pay or holiday leave. It's important for gig workers to weigh these factors before agreeing to zero-hour contract. Next, let's explore retainer agreement. Retainer agreement is a contract where a gig worker is paid a regular fee to be available for work as needed. This type of contract is common for consultants, designers, or IT professionals who provide ongoing services. The retainer guarantees the worker's availability, and the client benefits from having a trusted expert on call. Retainer agreements usually specify the scope of services, the retainer fee, and how additional work is billed. Let's look at the advantages of retainer agreements. Retainer agreements offer stability for gig workers, as they receive regular payments regardless of the amount of work assigned. This arrangement also builds long-term relationships between workers and clients, leading to more consistent work. However, workers must be clear about the services included in the retainer to avoid misunderstandings. Now, let's discuss another type of contract, the service level agreement. Service level agreement, or SLA, is a contract that defines the quality and scope of services a gig worker must provide. SLAs are common in customer support and maintenance roles. They set clear expectations for response times, performance standards, and remedies if the service falls short. For gig workers, SLAs provide clarity on what's expected and help avoid disputes. Let's examine the key elements of an SLA. SLAs typically include detailed descriptions of services, performance metrics, reporting requirements, and penalties for not meeting standards. These contracts protect both the client and the worker by setting measurable goals. For gig workers, understanding the metrics and expectations in an SLA is essential to delivering quality work and maintaining good client relationships. Next, let's talk about project-based contract. Project-based contracts are agreements for a specific task or project, with clear deliverables and deadlines. These contracts are common for creative professionals such as writers, designers, or developers. The contract outlines the project scope, timeline, payment terms, and any revision policies. Project-based contracts give gig workers the freedom to focus on one assignment at a time, but it's important to clarify all expectations up front. Let's look at what to include in a project-based contract. Good project-based contracts should specify the project's objectives, deadlines, payment schedule, and revision process. It may also include clauses about intellectual property and confidentiality. By clearly outlining these details, both the gig worker and the client can avoid misunderstandings and ensure a smooth workflow. Next, let's discuss time and materials contracts. Time and materials contracts pay gig workers based on the hours worked and materials used. This type of contract is common in construction, consulting, or repair work, where the scope may change during the project. The contract outlines hourly rates, material costs, and billing procedures. Time and materials contracts offer flexibility but require careful tracking of hours and expenses. Let's see the pros and cons of this contract type. Time and materials contracts provide flexibility for projects with uncertain scopes. Workers are paid for actual time and resources used, which can be beneficial if the project expands. However, clients may worry about costs rising unexpectedly, so clear communication and regular updates are essential. For gig workers, accurate record keeping is key to getting paid correctly. Next, let's explore commission-based contract. Mission-based contracts pay gig workers a percentage of sales or completed tasks. This type of contract is common in sales, marketing, or affiliate work. The agreement specifies how commissions are calculated, when they're paid, and any targets that must be met. Commission-based contracts can be lucrative for high performers but may result in variable income. Let's look at the key points to consider with commission contracts. Commission contracts should clearly define the commission rate, payment schedule, and any conditions for earning commissions. It's also important to specify what happens if a sale is canceled or refunded. For gig workers, understanding these terms helps avoid surprises and ensures fair compensation. Next, let's discuss non-disclosure agreements or NDAs. Non-disclosure agreements or NDAs are contracts that protect confidential information shared during a gig. NDAs are common when gig workers handle sensitive data, such as business plans, client lists, or proprietary technology. The agreement outlines what information must be kept secret and the consequences of breaking the terms. NDAs help build trust between workers and clients. Let's see what's usually included in an NDA. An NDA typically defines what information is confidential, how long the agreement lasts, and the penalties for sharing secrets. It may also specify exceptions, such as information that's already public. For gig workers, reading and understanding NDAs is crucial to avoid legal trouble. Next, let's talk about non-compete agreements. Non-compete agreement restricts gig workers from working with competitors or starting a similar business for a certain period. These contracts are used to protect a company's interests, especially when workers have access to sensitive information. Non-compete agreements must be reasonable in scope and duration to be enforceable. Let's look at the main features of non-compete agreements. Non-compete agreements usually specify the restricted activities, the geographic area, and the time frame. They should balance the company's need for protection with the worker's right to earn a living. Gig workers should carefully review these terms before signing. Next, let's discuss work-for-hire agreements. Work-for-hire agreement means that any work created by the gig worker belongs to the client, not the worker. This is common in creative industries such as writing, design, or software development. The contract should clearly state what work is covered and who owns the rights. Work-for-hire agreements help clients secure ownership of the final product. Let's see what to check before signing a work-for-hire contract. Before signing a work-for-hire contract, gig workers should check which works are included, how rights are transferred, and if there are any exceptions. Understanding these details ensures there are no surprises about ownership later. Next, let's talk about umbrella company contracts. Umbrella company contract is an arrangement where a gig worker is employed by an intermediary company, which handles payroll, taxes, and benefits. The worker still takes on gigs for different clients but is technically an employee of the umbrella company. This setup can provide more stability and access to benefits but may involve fees. Let's explore the pros and cons of umbrella company contracts. Umbrella company contracts offer gig workers employee benefits like sick pay and pension contributions while still allowing flexible work. However, the umbrella company may charge fees for its services, reducing take-home pay. Workers should weigh the benefits against the costs before choosing this arrangement. Next, let's discuss agency contracts. Agency contracts involve a third-party agency that matches gig workers with clients. The agency handles contracts, payments, and sometimes training. Workers may be classified as employees of the agency or remain independent contractors. Agency contracts can simplify the process for both workers and clients but may involve agency fees. Let's look at the main features of agency contracts. Agency contracts typically outline the agency's role, payment terms, and worker classification. They may also include details about training, support, and dispute resolution. For gig workers, agency contracts can offer more support but may reduce independence. Next, let's summarize what we've learned about gig worker contracts. Summary: gig workers can encounter many types of contracts, each with its own advantages and challenges. From independent contractor agreements to agency contracts, understanding the terms is essential for protecting your rights and maximizing your opportunities. Always read contracts carefully, ask questions, and seek advice if needed. By knowing your options, you can choose the contract that best fits your needs and work style. Thanks for watching, and best of luck in your gig career.